Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamundirayed Nasta Prayasya Badeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Gyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Peshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesh Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today we are reading from Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 16, entitled Jain Vijay Cursed by the Sages. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Text 21, right? Yes. Yam vai vibhutir upayatir anuvelam anyair. What's the other one? Oh yes. 21 here, okay. Yastam vivikta charitar anuvartamanam natyadriyat parama bhagavata prasanga sattvam dvijanupata punya raja punita Shivatsalakshmakim agabhagabhajam stvam Yastam vivikta charitar anuvartmananam Natyodriyat parama bhagavata prasangam Sattvam dvijanupata punya raja punita Shivatsalakshmakim agabhagabhajam svam Yastam vivikta charitar anuvartmamam Natyadriyat parama bhagavata prasangam Sattvam dvijanupata punya raja punita Shivatsalakshmakim agabhagabhajanam stvam Bhagavata prasanga Sadvam Pujanupata Punya Raja Bonita Yastam Vivikta Charitai Anuvartamanam Prasangam Atvam Vijanupata Punya Raja Punita Yastam Vivikta Charitai Anuvartamanam Atvam Vijanupata Punya Raja Punita Hivatsag Lakshmaki Magam Estam Vivikta Jaridar Anuvartmananam Nityadriyat Parama Bhagavata Prasanga Satvam Vijanu Lakshmam Kimaga Bhagavad Nastram Tachanitar Anuvartmanana Natyadriya Parama Bhagavata Prasanga Tam Vijanupata Punya Raja Punita Evatsa Lakshma Kimaga Bhagavajanastam Ya Hu Tam Lakshmi Vivikta completely pure Charitai devotional services Anuvartamanam serving Na not Atyadriyat attached Parama the highest Bhagavata devotees Prasanga attached Sa the Supreme Lord Tvam you Dvija of the Brahmanas Anupata on the path Punya sanctified Rajaha dust Punitaha purified Shivatsa Shivatsa Lakshma the mark Kim what Agaha you obtained Bhaga all opulences or all good qualities Bhajanaha the reservoir Fam you Translation O Lord, you are exceedingly attached to the activities of your pure devotees. Yet you are never attached to the goddesses of fortune who constantly engage in your transcendental loving service. How can you be purified, therefore, by the dust of the path traversed by the Brahmanas? And how can you be glorified or made fortunate by the marks of Shivatsa on your chest? Purport. It is said in the Brahma Samhita that the Lord is always served by many hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune in his Vaikuntha planet. Yet because of his attitude of renunciation of all opulences, he is not attached to any one of them. The Lord has 6 opulences: unlimited wealth, unlimited fame, unlimited strength, unlimited beauty, unlimited knowledge, and unlimited renunciation. All the demigods and other living entities worship Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, just to get her favor. Yet the Lord is never attached to her, because he can create an unlimited number of such goddesses of his for his transcendental service. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, is sometimes envious of the tulasi leaves which are placed at the lotus feet of the Lord, for they remain fixed there and do not move, whereas Lakshmiji, although stationed by the chest of the Lord, sometimes has to please other devotees who pray for her favor. Lakshmiji sometimes has to go to satisfy her numerous devotees, but tulasi leaves never forsake their position, and the Lord therefore appreciates the service of the tulasi more than the service of Lakshmi. When the Lord says, therefore, that it is due to the causeless mercy of the Brahmanas that Lakshmiji does not leave him, we can understand that Lakshmiji is attracted by the opulence of the Lord, not by the Brahmanas' benedictions upon him. The Lord is not dependent on anyone's mercy for his opulence. He is always self-sufficient. The Lord's statement that his opulence is due to the benediction of the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas is only to teach others that they should offer respect to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord. O Lord, you are exceedingly attached to the activities of your pure devotees, yet you are never attached to the goddesses of fortune who constantly engage in your transcendental loving service. How can you be purified, therefore, by the dust of the path traversed by the Brahmanas? And how can you be glorified or made fortunate by the marks of Shivatsa on your chest? Hare Krishna, dear devotees, I'm seeking your blessings so that I can be able to say something nice about this transcendental verse. I sat yesterday and read it, and this verse is very, very substantial. There are many subtle principles contained in it, and I'm sure that whatever I prepared is not enough to cover all the intricacies of transcendental relationships between the Lord and his devotees. But I will attempt to say something touching few of the items. Sorry about this. So first of all, we approach the Supreme God from a distance. For us, at one point in our life or in our previous lives, or we can see in other people's lives, for them God is some kind of a concept in the background, some foreign force, something mystical, an esoteric principle that is guiding life, nature, an authority, or some supreme intelligence which is conducting even the smallest events that are happening in our daily lives, and even up to the point of more complex events, the law of karma and natural phenomena, an intelligence that guides the world towards a direction. And as we know, from the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is explaining some of his opulences, and he's confirming this. For example, he says, "Time I am, the destroyer of worlds." And Prabhupada is clarifying in one of his purports, he's explaining how even though many people might say that they're atheists, they don't believe in God, still they have to bow down in front of Almighty Death, the devourer of everything. Everything that is born in this world is destined to die. So even the greatest rascal, the greatest stubborn man who doesn't want to turn to God, even he can appreciate and understand this all-pervading principle. Nobody wants to die, yet when death comes, everybody has to bow down. Even the greatest demons like Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Or Krishna says, "I am the taste of water." So whenever we drink water, we remember Krishna and we understand that the pleasure that we are experiencing from quenching our thirst, or the pleasure when we experience from satisfying our hunger, filling our belly, these are all universal principles which are coming from the Creator, ultimately. And then, a step further, the aspiring spiritualist, he starts to realize God into his more intimate aspect. He starts to realize God as the inner guide, someone who whispers from the inside. Or some people speak about our conscience or our intuition. Some people notice many signs and omens around us, as if existence is speaking to us, as if there is some kind of interconnectivity between everything, between all the living entities and plants. And so in this way, one starts to perceive the personality of God, some traces here and there, some guidance from within. And then, at one point, when one becomes even more inquisitive and serious, sincere in his search, he starts to move forward into the more intimate aspects of God. So it is said that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so whenever one develops a sincere desire to know God, then soon after, Krishna sends his representative in the form of the spiritual master, for example, who is so kind and so merciful to us, because he starts revealing the greater mystery behind the whole concept of supreme absolute truth. He starts revealing the sweet personality of the Creator, of God. So it's not just some kind of a force, some kind of a light that stands in millions of light years away from us, some kind of an old person or cloud. No, actually, Krishna has a transcendental body, and that is something very special, that is something that very few people in this world are actually impelled to understand. The traits and features of this wonderful person, this artist who created every single element in this world. So much beauty is there. Prabhupada used to say, look at the beauty of nature and the beauty of so many things in this world. So imagine the beauty of the Creator. Imagine how opulent He is, as we see here. The possessor of all strength, of all beauty, all renunciation, all knowledge, everything that exists in this world, coming out just from a spark of His splendor. And the wonderful person, Krishna, Govinda, and his dealings, and the dealings with his devotees, his intimate dealings. This is the great mystery that the aspiring devotee has to endeavor to understand in his devotional life, and how to come out of his own way, how to sacrifice his comforts and his position in order to please Krishna. Therefore, we are entering a new realm here, and this is the realm of loving exchanges between the Supreme Lord and His loving devotees. It's a realm that goes beyond rules and regulations often. It's the inner realm of the heart of Krishna. And that is what we learn from the pages of the Śrimad Bhāgavatam or the intimate pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How merciful He is, Krishna Himself. He has come in this fallen, in this dark age to give us this intimate information which can give us ultimately the last word of spiritual realization, to understand the dealings of the residents of Goloka Vrindavan with Him personally. So when a devotee starts to approach all these concepts, they become the main direction in his life. Das Anudas, Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I am the servant of the servant of the servant of the servants of the Lord. Or we hear very, very often this phrase, serving the lotus feet of Krishna. So there is no difference between these two principles. Das, Anudas, and serving the lotus feet of Krishna, they are synonyms in a way. We can only approach Krishna through His devotees, because the devotees are the lotus feet of Krishna. Even we have Bhagavatam, the first two cantos, understanding, reading and relishing the first two cantos, adopting the mood of a humble servant, which is the opposite of what we have become in this world. And in this way, coming out of our own way to serve the Lord. Just like we can appreciate an example from this world, just like when the mother is sacrificing her time and her personal comforts for raising her own child. A mother is always vigilant, always ready to serve, always ready to give so much. It is very extraordinary. The love of the mother. Everybody knows. Everybody can recall the wonderful pastimes of his childhood, and when his mother was calling him home, preparing him nice foodstuffs, your favorite foodstuffs many times, ice cream or chips, whatever, and changing your diapers, when you do your business under and you don't know, you don't understand anything, you don't know how to speak, but there is somebody there to care for you, otherwise you might develop some disease. So in the same manner, the sincere devotee, with the same mood, he tries to reach the inner side of Krishna, the inner chambers of his heart. The sincere devotee becomes like a bumblebee that gets nectar from every flower. The bumblebee goes everywhere and looks for juice everywhere in all the flowers. In this way, the devotee is always looking for mercy. He's looking for the mercy of all the other Vaishnavas. He's always trying to know them, to befriend them. Kadambakara Maharaj, he often says in his lectures, conquer in relationships. So we have to learn how to conquer in relationships and get out of our own way in order to serve the devotees and to see what pleases them. It's a very, very, very mystical science. We don't want all these flowers that are present in front of us to become unavailable, to become closed. So we don't want to displease the devotees. We don't want to disrespect them, because we will lose so much mercy. We don't want this to happen in our life. We want to get as much mercy as possible from everybody, from our seniors, from our peers and juniors. So how much this could be a meditation for anybody of us. When we wake up in the morning, when we're chanting our rounds, then when we finish with our program, we can think about it. We can think, how much am I endeavoring to get away from my own personal comforts and position to please Krishna's devotees, in order to please Krishna. Because Krishna is actually not attracted by any opulence. Krishna is not attracted by a professional position. Krishna, as we said, Krishna pervades with a single spark of his splendor this entire material universe. He can produce millions and billions of Lakshmis and Brahmas, Indras and planets, and he is the reservoir of all pleasure, Atmarama. Krishna is Svarat. He is the only living entity which is completely independent. In this world, everybody is trying to be independent, because everybody is trying to be like Krishna. but nobody can be independent. We are very, very dependent. But Krishna, he is Swarat. Nityo Nityanam Chetananas Chetananam. He is satisfying from time immemorial the desires of all the living entities. He is the only provider. So Krishna is not so mesmerized. He's not so shaken by somebody's expertise. Of course, that can be very helpful in one's devotional service. Ultimately, one should become expert. But in order to go deeply into the heart of Krishna, one has to do something more special. One has to offer his love to Krishna. And many times externally we might not recognize this. We don't know what is the relationship between the devotees and Krishna. That's why we have to be always respectful and offer our obeisances to everybody. We have to understand. Just like there is this pastime where Narada Muni met the cobbler and the Brahmana, very qualified Brahmana. He was curious to know when is he going back to Godhead. He was convinced that it will be pretty soon, because he's very qualified. He's a Brahmana after all. And then Narada Muni, he met also the simple cobbler who is performing not a very respectable work in society. And he also asked him the same question. And then Narada Muni, he went to the spiritual world and he met Narayana, and he asked him. Narayana told him, the Brahmana, he will come in many, many lifetimes, thousands of lifetimes. But the cobbler, this is his last life. He will come very, very soon. And Narada Muni was perplexed. He couldn't understand how is this possible. So he inquired from Narayana. And Krishna's response was that, don't worry, you come back and just tell them this and you will understand. Tell them that your dear Lord was, how do you say? Treading an elephant through the eye of the needle. Okay. So he went to the Brahmana and he told him, he was very anxious, he was very satisfied to see him. Oh yes, tell me please, Narada Muniji. When am I coming back? And he responded, after thousands of lifetimes. And he was very, very upset. And he told him, okay, anyway, how is my Lord doing? What is he doing in the spiritual world? And he told him, he's treading an elephant through the eye of the needle. And the Brahmana was very reluctant to believe this. He was like, what is this? How is this possible? No, it cannot be true. He was hesitant to believe this. But then he went to the cobbler, and the cobbler was asking, how is my Lord doing in his personal abode? Can you tell me of his pastimes? And Narada Muni told him, yes, when I went to visit him, he was treading this elephant through the eye of the needle. And the cobbler's immediate response was, oh my God, my Lord is so wonderful. He can do so many wonderful things. He can he can sprout an entire tree from this single banyan seed of a banyan tree. What to speak of all these other things? So much wonder. So in this way, Narada Muni understood the heart of these two devotees, and that was the answer of his question. Or in the same manner, we know when Sudama Brahmana he came to Krishna to visit him, and he offered just broken rice. Or in the past times with the Pandavas, with Arjuna especially, Krishna was ready to become the servant of his devotee. He was serving Arjuna as his charioteer, because this is the mood of our beloved Lord. He is the servant of his devotees. And in the spiritual world, there is even a competition of whom will do the best to please the Supreme Lord. So there is a jealousy. There is a so-called envy sometimes. But this is not like the envy of the material world, where somebody wants to become big and at the same time he wants to diminish everybody else. This jealousy is transcendental. When Lakshmi Devi, for example, when she is jealous of Tulsi Maharani, it is because she is offering such a great service, and this is indirectly a glorification of the exalted position of the devotee that Lakshmi is glorifying. It's not diminishing. It's actually something very nice to see, something that we cannot see in this material world, because everybody is used to diminish everybody else. This is the nature of the envious conditioned souls, and this element is there to show the extreme attachment of the devotee to Krishna. When Lakshmi is, when we saw here in the purport, Lakshmi ji is jealous of Tulsi because Tulsi never leaves the feet of the Lord. This is because Lakshmi never wants to leave the position of service, of direct service to the Lord, as a wife of the Lord. As a wife never wants to leave the association of his husband. In the same way, she is appreciating the position of Tulsi Maharani, which is she's never leaving the lotus feet of the Lord. Or for example, when the gopis were envious of the cowherd man because they can embrace Krishna freely everywhere, but they can't. Or the flute of Krishna, who is always with Krishna, never separated from him. So in this way we understand these intimate dealings and a whole new world of relationships with the Lord. In the material world, pleasure is always at the expense of someone else. So all this lust that is present in our hearts, it has to be converted to love. And then, only then, Krishna will become attracted to our devotional service. People are very much attached to this. When, for example, in our movement, when they see how we are dealing with each other, when they see our relationships, which are ultimately bound to become spiritual, they become really attracted by all these qualities that the devotees are exhibiting. I have met one person who came to our temple, for example, and he was explaining how the thing that really struck him, how everybody accepted him as if he was part of their family. When he saw how devotees are actually acting like brothers and sisters, and so he became really touched by these loving relationships, which ultimately we have to perfect by applying ourselves and transforming the material lust into loving relationships with Krishna. So this is what I wanted to say on this verse. If there are any comments, Maharaj maybe wants to say something, questions, corrections. Yes, I saw that. I have more questions.
As a rasa. So Shanta ras is considered neutrality, but above that is a dasya ras, which is the rasa of servitorship, where the devotees serve Krishna in an opulent setting, and he is always very high and they're always very tiny. And then above that is the rasa of friendship, or sakya ras, where devotees are considering themselves equal to Krishna and they're friends with Krishna. And then above that is salya ras, where devotees consider themselves Krishna's protector as a parent. And finally, conjugal ras, which is the most intimate. So what's a little peculiar is that Lakshmi is by many commentators seen as actually in dasya ras, in the servitorship modality or whatever. Although in one sense she could be considered to be in conjugal ras because she's actually a consort of Vishnu. So Narayan and Lakshmi, we always hear of them as Lakshmi and Narayan. Now, some way or another, both things are true. How that works, I don't know. I only recently came across this concept that there is some subtle shades of rasa connection. I always was under the impression there was rasa basa. You can be in one rasa or the other, but not both, you know. But at any rate, in some way or another, we find, and Prabhupada spells it out in the purport, that Lakshmi is attracted in the mood of opulence. So she is opulent, the Supreme Lord is opulent, and she's serving him in an opulent situation. That is a qualification or a description of being in Vaikuntha and not being in Goloka Vrindavan, because in Goloka Vrindavan, all the gopis and the gopas, they never think of Krishna in great opulence. They always are associating with him as a cowherd boy. He dresses simply. When the gopis offer Krishna a garland, they're not offering him the most expensive flowers in the world. They're offering him whatever they find in the forest, which could be leaves or etc. Very simple things. So the relationship between the gopis and Krishna, the relationship between the gopas and Krishna, and for that matter his parents as well, is much more on a simple level. Krishna is not in some high majesty. And so, as I mentioned, there is the pastime where when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in South India, he met Venkata Bhatt and Tirumala and these devotees of the other sampradaya. And he was joking with them. He joked with Venkata Bhatt. He said, why does your Lakshmi want to see my Krishna? Because in the other sampradaya, they worship Lakshmi Narayan, and there's not much talk about Radha Krishna worship, although it is actually there in their philosophy as well. But there's not much focus on that. And so Venkata Bhatt said, what is the harm there? You know, Krishna and Narayan are the same, so she's just trying to see her husband in another form. And Lord Chaitanya counters by saying, but the gopis never want to see Narayan. So why is that, you know? And of course the answer Venkata Bhatt gave was, my dear Lord, you can make these questions. Nobody knows the answer to them. You only know the answer to them. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu answers that Lakshmi had wanted to see the rasa dance. So she came to where the gopis were, and she asked, can I also see the rasa dance with Krishna? And they said, yes. You have to dress like a gopi and get in our mood, and you can do that. But Lakshmi couldn't do that because she was attached to the opulence of being Lakshmi. So therefore she was unable to enter the rasa dance. So this indicates that those who worship the Supreme Lord in opulence, in that mood, in a kind of dasya ras mood, they are unable to appreciate the simplicity of being able to come down to be very intimate with Krishna. So they're in a different relationship. And this is what's being pointed at in this verse too, that although they are certainly devotees, they're not devotees in the most intimate way. And another subtle point here is the idea that Prabhupada makes, that it's not the Brahmana's mercy that makes Krishna opulent, although that's the way it's being described in this verse, you know. Krishna's self-effulgent. Krishna's self-opulent. He doesn't need anybody's help to be opulent. He is swaram, you know. He is self-satisfied. He's self-effulgent. He is self-created. He doesn't need anything outside of himself. So the fact that Krishna is saying this only indicates that he is suggesting there that Lakshmi is attracted to the opulence of Krishna. You know, she's obviously also attracted to Narayan or Krishna in the fact that she loves him as well, but there's that qualification or that quality mixed in of being attracted to the opulence, which purportedly the Brahmanas would bestow. Of course, the Brahmanas don't actually bestow it on Krishna. Neither does the Srivatsa make Krishna special because he has it. And it's even described that when Krishna wears jewels, he beautifies the jewels rather than the jewels beautifying him. When, he wears clothes, he beautifies the clothes rather than the clothes beautifying him, So everything is kind of reversed when we're talking about Krishna. So all those things are there. And I just wanted to point them out. There's actually another point that I wanted to make based on your example of the cobbler and the brahmana, where, the cobbler is seeing Narada Muni. Narada Muni's on the way to see Krishna, and he says, please ask Krishna, when I will be delivered from material existence, and tell me what Krishna's doing. So both the cobbler asked that, and the brahmana asked that. When Narada Muni comes back, Krishna has told Narada Muni what to say to them, and Narada Muni tells the brahmana, my dear brahmana, Krishna was putting an elephant through the eye of a needle. There's a similar Christian concept of putting a camel through the eye of a needle. That's a different thing. But in this case, it's putting an elephant through the eye of a needle, and the brahmana can't believe that. And so then he asks, well, when will I be delivered? And Narada Muni says, well, not for many millions of births. And then when we find that the cobbler asks, when will I be delivered? Krishna has replied to Narada Muni that he will be delivered in this lifetime. And then he asked what was he doing, and he said he was putting an elephant through the eye of a needle. And the cobbler had no problem with that, because he said, as you were pointing out, that he can put an entire oak tree into a tiny seed, so why can't he put an elephant through the eye of a needle? Which brought me up to something I just recently ran across, which is in Christianity in the early days, there was this tension between reason and faith. And we see that too. It's not just something that happens in Christianity. This tension between reason and faith has always been there in philosophies and in religion, etc., etc. There was one religious philosopher named Tertullian who made the famous statement, what is it? Credo quia absurdum est. Credo quia absurdum est. I believe it because it's absurd. So there were people who were following various philosophers of that time, ostensibly people like not Plato, but Aristotle, Aristotle was kind of quite more of a materialist, and so when Christians encountered them, they would have these arguments, and this is Tertullian's response, which has actually been kind of downplayed in Christianity, but at one point it was an important response, that I believe some of the things in Christianity because they're absurd, not in spite of the fact that they're absurd, but because they're absurd. We don't exactly follow that concept, because we don't believe things because they're absurd, but we understand that reason has its limits, that no matter what philosophy you believe, there are some unreasonable things in that philosophy, whether you believe materialism or whether you believe some religious belief or whatever it is. Every philosophy comes to the limit where you have to accept some things that are apparently absurd sounding. So we have this idea of reasonable belief, where we believe things because we can give some reasons for them, not absolutely everything we can give reasons for, but neither can materialists or people who are so-called rationalists, those who absolutely believe in reason. They too cannot give reasonable beliefs for everything. So I just thought I would bring that point up too. So, Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Granth Raj Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki